I think I see a lot of people on social media and they do not know what to do when it comes to ranking on Google. There's a lot of SEO guides out there. There's a lot of confusion as to what's the best strategy and what's the quickest and best way to rank on Google. Well, we've been looking over a lot of SEO data in the last 2 weeks. We've had some clients that, went from not ranking anywhere on Google to magically being on the first page the very next day. We've had other clients who went from not ranking on Google to ranking on all their keywords on the first and second page. And there's some consistencies each and every time, and we've had to change strategies because we've learned a lot along the way in the last few days, last few weeks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of just lay out a roadmap that I believe every company needs to follow if they want to rank on Google. So first things first, one of the big mistakes I see on social media, especially right now, is there's this whole craze with AI. And the fact that AI can pump out a lot of content very quickly, you can upload them as blogs and get some SEO juice that way. So, and that's all fine and dandy. I'm a big fan of using AI for content. I'm a big fan of speeding up any processes, making the processes cheaper for consumers. I'm a big fan of automation in general, but a lot of people should not start with content. And this is the problem I have with content marketers. I legitimately have a problem with a lot of content marketers that come in. They say that they have a blog strategy, and that blog strategy doesn't matter if Google doesn't recognize your website. If Google does not recognize your website, you can blog all day and you might get a little bit of traction, but you're better off making sure that Google recognizes your legitimacy right from the very start. Now, how do you do this? What is the easiest and quickest way to get into the Google algorithm so that Google sees you as legit? And it's not necessarily on-page optimization. It's not interlinking your entire website. It's not content. It is a little bit of content. You got to have a little bit of content on your pages. But the biggest thing by far, and this has been the case through the entire existence of Google, is backlinking. Yes, backlinking. Getting another website to refer to your website and have a link from their website to your website. That is the number one way to build legitimacy with Google. Now, on top of that, you need to be linked into Google Search Console. You really have to. And if you're not, that's a huge opportunity that you need to take advantage of. So link your website to Google Search Console and then upload your sitemap into your website. It's that simple. Just do that, get some backlinks, track your rankings on Google Search Console, and you should see a spike in traffic, or at least a spike in impressions. You might not see an immediate spike in traffic, but after a few weeks, you should definitely see an increase in impressions. Every single website that we work on that is not ranking for certain keywords on Google, once we get them into the algorithm, we always see a massive spike in impressions. And that goes anywhere between just double the amount of impressions all the way up to 10x the impressions. We had a client recently that went from getting 4 impressions a day on Google because they were only coming up for like 2 keywords on the 7th page or something like that. We created some new landing pages for them, backlinked to all of them. And 2 weeks after we got all that done, they went from not ranking on any of those keywords to ranking on the top 3 pages every single time for all those keywords. And we're still working on getting them into the first category, the first page. And I'll explain what our strategy is for that in just a moment. But that was the quickest way to get them into the algorithm. We've done it the opposite way, where instead we do content first. And historically, I think this worked. I think that this used to be a really good strategy, is do a bunch of blog content, get the blog indexed on Google, and grow that way. I still think that that's a good strategy, but it's changed. I think that if I look back at SEO projects I was a part of anywhere between 2019 and really 2021, that was a great strategy, and that worked 9 out of 10 times. Now, we're not seeing that work as well. We had a client where we did like 20 blog posts for them, and it didn't go anywhere at all. And they were very well optimized blog posts. They were very well optimized. But as soon as we started backlinking to our landing pages and to the blog pages, everything started rising from there. If we would have started with backlinking, that blog would have been a lot more valuable if we would have just waited a few months till after we started backlinking. I think that would have been a much better strategy than to just post for no reason. So that's one thing that we've had to change in our process. Is historically that's how we've always done it, or how I've always done it, is start with blogging and then do backlinking. We've flipped it the other way. Build out landing pages for the specific keywords that we want to target, and then start blogging once those pages are actually registered on Google and once they're in the algorithm. That's the best place to start. Now, I mentioned briefly that we have a client who is sitting anywhere between like the 5th page and the 2nd page on Google. They're not quite to the 1st page. So the strategy here is once you get into that algorithm and once your website is being recognized there, is to refine your content, refine your landing page, and make sure that it's actually helpful to the person that you're trying to serve. Ultimately, if your web page isn't helpful and someone clicks on it, even if it's on the 1st page, someone clicks on it, they go, oh, this is just a bunch of SEO garbage. They hit the back button. They just bounce from your website. That's going to count against you every single time. So your page needs to be helpful. It needs to be a dedicated landing page that is actually going to help the person find the solution to whatever they're Googling. Like that's the whole focus. That's the whole thing that you have to, that you really have to do. Whew. Oh man. So, once you have that page built out and you have a nice landing page there, the next big thing that I would start doing is interlinking. Make sure that you're linking out to all the other pages on your website, to related keywords, to related content, and make sure that those links are going between each other on all the pages, just so that way your website is better crawlable by Google. And this is a form of on-page optimization. And you should be doing all forms of on-page optimization. You should be optimizing your speed. You should be optimizing your alt tags. You should have the accessibility on your website. Your entire website should be accessible from a keyboard. Because if it's not, one, there's a chance that you're going to get sued. There's people out there that literally are like blind and they just go around suing people because, oh, I couldn't hit tab on your website and, you know, now I'm putting a lawsuit on you. And it's technically the law, so they win 9 out of 10 times. In addition, Google recognizes that that's important. Accessibility is important for the websites. So that's part of their on-page ranking factors is accessibility. So make sure that your website is friendly on, you know, for blind people, for deaf people, etc. Do the best that you can on that. That's where alt tags on images are important. You need to describe the image that you have on there. You should also include the keyword on some of those images as well. But, you know, I definitely start there. As far as like other ranking tips that I have just off the cuff is just be informative. Just be the best content that you can be. I wouldn't necessarily recommend, depending on the industry, if you're in like a local service-based industry and you're wanting to rank on Google, use AI content all day. Like use it all day. But if you're in a B2B setting where you're in a competitive market, people are going to see through that AI stuff. And ultimately, everyone's using AI, so no one stands out. So you might want to get a little bit more creative with your content in the long term, just so that way people recognize, okay, this is legitimate content. It's not the same thing as these other 8 links on the 1st page of Google. This is actually good content. Plus, if you have good content, the chances of someone converting is going to be much higher than if you just have AI-generated mumbo jumbo. You know, so if you do all of that, if you make sure that your website is coming up on Google before you start doing everything else. So simply put up a page with your keywords, your targeted keywords on it, some content around those, 500 to 1,000 words, backlink to those pages, then you can start doing everything else. That's what we've seen that works. Blogging up front, I don't believe works in the grand scheme of things. I think it's a great way to grow, but first you have to get into the algorithm in the first place. Once you're there, your blogging efforts are going to end up being 10x better than if you didn't. So that's where I would start there. And then focus on everything else after you start ranking on Google. Use a tool like Ahrefs, SEMrush, track your rankings for your targeted keywords, and you're going to be in a much better spot.